Hello, everyone. Today's guest with us is Vidya Pingle, a very enthusiastic person, teacher, translator, corporate trainer, interpreter of German language. She was heading the language department at Goethe Zentrum, Coimbatore, and now she continues in an advisory capacity as honorary teacher and examiner. Join me in this conversation to know her career in languages. Welcome, Vidya.
Oh, thank you, Lalita. Thank you for this honor and a pleasure to be here.
Nice that you are here. Vidya, you are a commerce graduate. So, being a commerce graduate, did you ever feel that you will enter the world of languages and you will be very successful in it?
Well, frankly speaking, not because I started learning German when I was at a loose end after the 12th standard and wanted to do something in the vacations. So I started learning German, and I think right from the beginning, I have loved doing something different. So at that time, and I'm talking about 1980, when most people were learning French, I decided to do something different and decided to learn German. The another reason for learning German was that my mother was at that time working for a German company, which was a collaboration between Höchst and Bayer. And she had German bosses there on the factory premises. And I started learning, and then I developed an interest in it, and I continued learning. And that is how, after my BCom, I took a decision not to do an MBA and do a MA in German. So that is how I have moved to languages, a little by coincidence, a little by thought. But yes, I have made a career out of it.
That is wonderful. So, you have been teaching German as a foreign language at various levels, right? So,
Yeah.
it is schools, colleges, and institutes. So, what changes do you think you have to make while teaching at various levels?
Well, when you teach in schools, let me tell you, Lalita, discipline and maintaining discipline takes away a lot of your time. And I think I am not a very discipline oriented person. So schools was a little difficult. And with schools and school children, you yourself have to be very, very creative. And I don't think I am very creative. Yes, I am creative, but perhaps not very creative. I have seen some ideas school teachers have, and believe me, I would never have come on it. And when it comes to colleges also, then attendance and so on is a big issue. Again, some disciplinary action needed. And so I feel working in a dedicated institute like the Goethe Institute or Goethe Zentrum or any other institution dedicated to learning and teaching of languages, I do feel at home because those who come are then motivated to learn. Because at other places, your first task is to motivate them to learn. Here, they have paid high fees and are motivated because they have come to the institution to learn, let's say, German. Because they want to go to Germany, or they have to join their spouse in Germany, or they have career plans for Germany. So, the motive is there, the enthusiasm is there. So what you have to do as a teacher is only fuel it and keep it alive and give them the inputs that will take them to their goals. And I think that is, for me, a more enjoyable experience.
Certainly so. Great. So, what does it mean when we say teaching German as a foreign language?
Yeah, that is because you learn a foreign language a little differently than you learn mother tongue. I have even taught German to native speaker kids because I have run a German school for Bosch expat kids for 4 years, or more than 6 years, where I have taught right from first standard to a 7th standard German school syllabus in German.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, yes, and the way they learn German, I mean, to just give you, I mean, they don't know what is accusative, nominative, dative, and so on. They only know wer fall, was fall, wen fall, wem fall, and so on. And the adjective declination and all the things that we teach our students, it's
Right.
known to them. It comes
Mm.
naturally. They don't even think about it. Yeah.
Mm.
And they are correct. I mean, they say it correctly because they've heard it correctly. And the exposure
Yeah.
in the form of movies and talk with the relatives, friends,
Mm.
everything, their
Mm.
language proficiency is sometimes as good or better than us. The fluency, I mean.
Being
So
native.
so that is why when you teach as a foreign language, what we teach is that we just give the language inputs. The matter is known to our students. Like, for example, they do know that you have to greet, and you just have to say how you have to greet, or they do know what are the various subjects. What you have to provide is the language inputs for it.
Correct.
And that is why teaching as a foreign language is different from teaching any language as a native language.
Correct. Because you must be using different methodologies and different techniques.
Of course, yes. And that is why, I mean, the methodologies of teaching a foreign language are different than teaching a native language. See how we learned Marathi in school and compare it to how we learned German later.
Correct.
And that is the difference actually between teaching language as a mother tongue or as a native language and as a foreign language.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes. You hold the CELTA certificate, that is the Cambridge for teaching English to non-native speakers, right?
Yeah.
So that is amazing. So when did you do this?
I did it in 2009, Lalita, and it was with a certain intention of maybe going to another country. And so then you have two options. You can teach German as a foreign language, and you can also teach English as a foreign language. Frankly speaking, doing CELTA was an extension of what we did in the teacher training of Deutsch als Fremdsprache. And and in fact, I would say their methodologies are a little more advanced than those of teaching Deutsch als Fremdsprache, because you see, English as a foreign language has a much wider audience. Just by the sheer numbers of being English more popular, and of course that English is taught in all the erstwhile British colonies, and so their methods are, I would say, a little more advanced, but that was also a great experience because they take the selection procedure is a tough one, and passing it is even tougher.
I'm sure. So teaching English was also a challenge?
Yes, because then I think with English, phonetics and so on, it needs to be done a lot more. That way, pronunciation in English is in German is much easier than pronunciation in English, right? So you do have to do a lot of phonetic drills and work a lot on the pronunciation, intonation, and so on. I don't say that you don't have to do it with German, but you do have to do it intensively for English.
For English. True, true. So in addition to teaching, you have been involved in the technical translation of documents. I mean, commercial documents, right? From German to English and English to German to support several overseas projects.
Yes, yes.
So this was in the area of information technology, and there may be many more domains and areas. So can you tell us more about it?
I joined TCS in 1992 as their corporate language coordinator. That exposed me to a lot of IT projects. And I think for the time that I was there, I supported close to 50 projects in non-English speaking countries, basically Germany and Switzerland. And so it exposed me to the technical, let's say IT related language in German, through these projects. And of course, a lot of domain knowledge was to be acquired, which very often our engineers who worked on the projects helped me with it and explained it a bit to me. And that is how I got to know also about various fields, because that is also necessary, and that has been a very, very enriching experience. Because when you have to translate, then you have to go a little deeper than just superficially knowing something.
Yeah, I was about to ask you. So when you are doing a completely different domain and your commerce area, so how do you teach yourself that subject? And I think you answered it already.
Yes, and apart from that, I do parallel reading, in the sense that for the subject, let's say I'm doing something about cables, then I read about cables in English, and I try to find out the correct vocabulary and expressions for what is said in German, because then I know, okay, oh, this can mean this, and this means this, and so on. And so because it's, for example, the optical fiber cable, it's a glass fiber cable or whatever. So I do come to know that, okay, and then of course I develop my own dictionaries in the form of glossaries that I use during the translation to maintain consistency. For certain projects, I have even got the project specific glossaries from the client, and that has helped me orient myself and use the correct expressions for in translation.
Yes, yes. That is quite an extensive research then, I must say.
Yes, yes. I must, and in fact, it is not, I mean, I wouldn't say it's difficult, but it's a lot of work. I mean, doing it well needs a lot of work through parallel reading and maybe interacting with the subject matter experts a little and trying to understand, because one may not understand it so much in detail as the expert, but then not just superficial, but a little below the superficial level helps one in translating better.
Definitely. When you started this translation career, or when you started helping out with documents, were there any tools you were using? Because nowadays there is a lot of emphasis on tools.
So at that time, I started by typing on a manual typewriter.
Oh my God.
After that, I moved to a typewriter with electronic display, where whatever you type would be seen in one small window. And after that, I moved to a DOS computer, and after that to a Windows computer. Okay, so the journey has been long because I think, my first translation in somewhere in 1982, 83. So while I was still, let's say almost 40 years ago. So I have come a long way in this field, and right from buying dictionaries, many dictionaries, a technical dictionary, a medical dictionary, a commercial dictionary, and so on, to now having everything online and translation memories and online dictionaries, and now tools. I have been at that time a test market for also like automatic translation tools, which then do a sort of replacement and give you an output which you then have to edit, to tools like Transit and Trados, and also then other tools now that they are, I wouldn't want to name anybody, but the modern ones that use artificial intelligence and so on. Right up to these tools, I have tried them all.
Oh my God. So you have seen all the transitions.
Yes, 40 years is a long time, Lalita.
But what do you think of this, growing use of artificial intelligence or machine translation?
I feel it is great. It reduces it. See, for example, when I used to do it with a typewriter, I could do maximum 1,000 words a day. By 1,000 words, I would have used 6 to 7 hours of my time. To today, if you do this AI, what they give you as output, and edit it and do an editing of a machine translation as is required, inspired by some modern tools, then it is much, much easier, and the output is more, because I have seen that with this machine and editing of not editing of machine translations or machine translation outputs, I can go up to 8 or 10,000 words a day in an 8-hour, if I keep the same 8-hour working schedule.
You're right. The output has really increased.
Yes,
Definitely.
and maybe also that is also needed where there is also a demand now. The global economy necessitates it to translate into and from various languages, let us say for e-commerce or various other uses. So it is become more necessary to have multilingual documentation. And so I think it's also, and in translation industry, everything is needed sooner than yesterday.
Yes.
So, I think these are all great tools, but I must warn everybody that they are not 100% right. I would say they go up to 70% right, but the 30% work does need to be done. There, I do know translators who blindly have faith in the computer and give an output which is just being translated and not edited, and there are certain howlers then in it.
Oh, yes. You have raised a very important topic here. We have to be very careful.
Yes, you have to be, it is, as they say in German, Vertrauen ist gut, Controller is besser. So it's good to trust the machines, but it is also necessary to check, because as one company's slogan goes, to err is human, but to louse things up, it takes a computer. So it can be very lousy, so you have to be careful.
Better be careful than be sorry.
Yeah, better be careful than sorry later.
So this was our talk about, commercial or, as we say, technical translations.
Yes.
But you have also indulged in Daya Pawar's Baluta from Marathi into German. So
yeah.
How did this come
along? Yeah, how it happened is Dr. Norbert Nikolaus was at JNU, and I ended up in JNU in 1985. Yeah, and so at that time, then because Dr. Nikolaus had done this with Professor Shrotri of Dharwad, where he was before. So, and the translation was ready, except maybe some gaps, some parts and so on that needed to be done. But the translation was ready, but unfortunately rejected by a publishing house due to many errors. So it was my job to meet up with Daya Pawar and discuss those aspects of his life, understand it correctly, put it in correct German, for which then very often I had to consult an etymologisches Wörterbuch, because the sort of scenario that exists in that community that Daya Pawar came from was maybe somewhere something to the Middle Ages. The society and the milieu in which Daya Pawar grew up was something like the Middle Ages. So, one had to go back etymologically and work and find out words, but it was an altogether interesting experience, and especially to interact with an author. I had one more experience of doing a translation where then I did the translation from German to English of a famous author and a very, very famous publishing house for English, and perhaps the topmost one rejected it, saying that the translation is not up to the mark because my English did not match that high level of German that was there in the original text. And so some other person who is basically an English writer had to redo it and then got published. That brings me to another project that I did with the Goethe Institute, and that's Poets Translating Poets, and where we gave as translators a translinear translation of the poem, and then the concerned poet put it in his or her own words and gave it his touch in the translation. And that is different. You see, when a poet translates a poet through the medium of a translator, I have seen how amazing it can be.
Oh, wow.
Yes, how amazing, because that ethos and the feeling is captured by a poet. Let me tell you, I'm a very dry translator, and that is why I stick to translation of technical or commercial, because there cannot be various shades of the words. X means X, X means Y in the other language, and that's it. There cannot be tonalities, whereas in a literary translation, there are lots of tonalities. And unless you also are a sort of author or poet at heart, you won't get it. And I am not. So I don't venture into it.
Oh, God. You absolutely nailed it, because literary translations and non-literary. I mean,
no, and that is why I feel it is better to stick, and for me, to stick to, let's say, commercial, technical, legal, medical translations, because there are no tonalities and nuances of the word, and there is no word play in it. It's very cutthroat and dry. But I suppose it suits my personality and my let's say, acumen in the field of languages. Yes. So that is why I stick to those.
Great. And you translate a lot of websites also. So that is a completely different genre, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, because when you have to translate a website, you also, again, that's also a lot of creativity. And so it has a certain bit of marketing element in it. So your style has to also be a bit of marketing oriented style. And so then, I do the dry part of it and somebody flowers it up.
So it's a joint venture.
Yes, because, when it is not where A is equal to X and A can be X, Y, Z, then, I fail. And so that is why then I take help of someone who can convert my X into Y, Z and put it nicely.
I can understand.
It's not enough. Just me alone is not enough.
Vidya, translation is done from a comfort zone. That is what I feel. And interpretation is, you are totally in a different atmosphere and you don't have any tools or, any online dictionaries for your help. So what do you think about this?
Well, I have done interpretations, and let me tell you, it's really challenging because, as you rightly said, you're just there, and whatever you have in your brain has to come out. And when you do it, I have done simultaneous, successive, at seminars, at conferences, at meetings. So the thing is that, especially when you do simultaneous, you have to literally divide your brain into two, and that in one side it keeps coming in between it gets processed, and from the other side it has to come out. And it's a very tiring experience. And I have also had a lot of fun in that sometimes, even if your mind goes away or wanders away for a while, it can be funny. I remember at a conference, my attention for a second was focused on the doorknob, and I was just wondering how beautiful it looks. And in that, I lost 4 sentences, and when I regained, so to say, in that split second, my senses, I realized that everybody is staring at me. Because they were waiting for that translation to come out. And I didn't know. So I just said, was haben Sie gesagt?
Oh my God.
Because I was totally lost, as you said in Fad and Farlier, and you lose track of it, even if your mind diverts for a split second. So that's why it's challenging. And as I love challenges, I love interpretation assignments, and I've really done them well. And of course, it pays a lot too. No? So it's fun. And that's it. I would say you need to be really competent to do it because, as you say, you are not in your comfort zone. But if you can do it and you can do it well, go ahead.
That's really wonderful. And you did take all the challenges, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes, whenever I am still open.
Because for interpretation, you have to know the culture as well, in addition to the source and the target language.
And you need to have total presence of mind, and it has to work fast, because it's just going. Of course, you can prepare, you can do background reading and so on, like you do for a translation. But then at that moment, especially if it is just a written text speech, you can even get the speech in advance and keep your translation ready. But if not, then it has to be done on the spot. And especially when you're doing Q&As and you're doing interpretation for Q&As, you just don't know what's the question that's going to be thrown at the speaker and in turn at you.
So for which all organizations did you do this interpretation for? For the embassy
Yeah,
also?
I did it for the industry. I was in the diplomatic service, in the sense that I was the official interpreter of the German consulate. So be it taking a delegation to Mr. Ratan Tata, or to the HDFC chairman, Dr. Deepak Parekh, or the RBI governor, Dr. C. Rangarajan, or to a whole lot of ministers in the Maharashtra cabinet at that time. I have done a lot of assignments. And later on too, even after marriage and moving to Nasik, I have done in Pune, and I have done again in Mumbai. I do it, I don't, let's say, chase assignments, but when they come, I don't leave them.
Fantastic. Vidya, what advice would you give, advice or suggestions or guidance would you give to those, who want to become interpreters?
Well, you have to master 2 languages. That is necessary because you should be fluent in the 2 languages that you're going for interpretation. And in India, I would say it would be an added advantage to even know the local language, because once at a minister's meeting, the minister, it started with the German, English, German. It moved on to German, Hindi, German, and then went on to German, Marathi, German. So if I hadn't known, and then, sometimes with ministers and so on, it's lights, action, camera on. You are, there is a TV recording or something, I'm talking about many years ago, and it does happen. So, you have to have all your wits in place to be able to tactfully handle everything.
Okay, great. So presence of mind, mastering the languages is a must.
It's absolute must. It's an absolute must.
You were involved in a project of designing communicative Marathi courses for Mumbai University.
Yes, I did a bit of it, but I helped on designing one chapter and so on. But the thing is, I realized that I am not a native Marathi speaker in the first place. So although I know Marathi and I'm married to a Pingle, there are many nuances of the Marathi language that I am also not aware of. So it was a bit difficult, and so I did give it a try, but afterwards I stopped.
Oh, that's different message that natives are natives.
Yes, because natives are natives. We can be as close to a native speaker, but what a native speaker knows, you cannot know however long your involvement with the foreign languages. A native speaker is a native speaker. I mean, to give you a very simple example, I got married into the Marathi household to the Pingles, and then on the first or second day, my mother-in-law said, "Sanshi de zara." So I was wondering, what the hell am I supposed to give? Because this word has never come, I have never come across this word in all my 35 years and maybe in all the 30 years of my exposure to the Marathi language, because it is a very typically household word. And if you do not speak Marathi at home, then you won't know what is Sanshi.
Correct. So what is your mother tongue, Vidya?
My mother tongue is Konkani.
Ah, okay.
I'm a Gauda Saraswat Brahmin. My maiden surname was Bhatt. And we come from Karkala, a place between Udupi and Mangalore.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Great.
So for me, all languages are acquired languages and all languages are foreign languages.
Yeah. And do you think the German language has changed over years?
Of course, exams have become maybe a little simpler. The syllabus has reduced, like from what we used to do in A1 or at that time Grundstufe 1 to what is done today in A1. But the exposure is a lot more. For us, the exposure was only through books and some cassettes and at the most some videos. Whereas today there is the internet and hundreds of self-learning videos on the net, and there are YouTube channels, and the YouTube channels have lots of followers, and everybody who thinks themselves worth their salt has to have a YouTube channel or should be an influencer on Instagram and so on. So, you know, the world has changed, and even the students and their exposure to the language is very manifold.
Manifold, yes. Because they are taking the language in from all sides, audio, video.
And from, audio, video. So it is mit allen Sinnen lernen. And a maybe more intensive experience.
Okay. And what would be your message to the younger demographic who is pursuing?
I say, well, it's what you make out of it. You see, when we started learning German with us also, there were many other students, right? Not all became German teachers.
What is the thing that you would like to change in the language industry?
Well, I wouldn't like to change anything in the industry because, what, as many of the gurus say, you cannot change anything outside. You can only change yourself to accept the change. So I am okay with everything that's going on. Yes, if the students show a little more dedication to learning and go for it with passion, it would be appreciable. But today, I also understand that everybody has their own limitations and everybody is battling on multiple fronts. So, well, there is no gain without pain. So those who want to make a success of it will have to put in the efforts.
Very nice, very nice. Vidya, can you tell us about your future plans?
Well, my future plans would lie in the field of bringing more of the dual education system to India. As the new education policy goes, there should and will be more importance on skilling. So Germany and the German-speaking countries have the dual education system and are strong in skill building. And I would like to work in this field. I have initiated something and it will see the light of the day in a couple of months from now. And I have other plans too, to maybe facilitate more of tie-ups between India and Germany on various fronts, and also to work in the development of books or materials for Fachsprachen, or German for vocational use. That is what is in mind, and that is what I will work on more in the future. Of course, all the other activities of the usual courses, exams, and so on will continue for a while.
Good, good. We wish you all the best for your future plans.
Thank you so much, and thank you once again for this opportunity to interact.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.